The light from my phone screen was the most aggressive thing I had ever seen. At 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, in the quiet of my Chicago apartment, that blue glow felt like an interrogation lamp. I blinked, trying to clear the sleep from my eyes, praying that the notifications lining up on my lock screen were part of a dream. They weren't. Most people wake up to alarm clocks or birds chirping. I woke up to the systematic dismantling of my financial security. Chase fraud alert. Did you authorize a transaction of $3,980 at American Airlines? Chase fraud alert. Did you authorize a transaction of $3,980 at American Airlines? Chase fraud alert. Did you authorize a transaction of $3,980 at American Airlines? 3 charges, nearly $12,000, gone in the span of 60 seconds. My stomach dropped so hard I felt nauseous. I sat up, clutching the duvet, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I'm an auditor, a forensic accountant. I spend my days tracking down missing money for corporations, finding the little discrepancies that signal embezzlement or fraud. I know exactly what financial ruin looks like because I look at it under a microscope every single day. But seeing those numbers on my own personal notification screen, it paralyzed me. My fingers trembled as I unlocked the phone. I went straight to the banking app. Pending, pending, pending. The available credit on my primary card, the one I had spent 7 years building a pristine history with, was nearly maxed out. My first thought, the logical, professional part of my brain, said, cloned card, skimmer at the gas station, it happens. I immediately switched apps to my email. If someone had bought tickets, there would be a confirmation. I needed to see the passenger names. I needed the receipt. That was the auditor in me taking over. Get the evidence, then react. I tapped the Gmail icon. Password incorrect. I frowned. I hadn't changed my password. I typed it again, carefully this time, enunciating every keystroke with my thumb. Password incorrect. A cold chill, sharper than the Chicago winter wind outside my window, sliced down my spine. This wasn't just a stolen credit card number. This was a takeover. I hit forgot password. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. The screen refreshed. A recovery code has been sent to the backup email on file, p.a@yahoo.com. I stopped breathing. The air in the room suddenly felt very thin. I didn't have a Yahoo account. I hadn't used Yahoo since middle school, but I knew exactly who did. P.A. Paula, my mother. I stared at those masked letters, and the nausea returned, violent and overwhelming. It couldn't be. There was no way. We had our issues. God knows we had our issues. But theft? Grand larceny? This was a felony amount of money. I scrambled out of bed, pacing the length of my small bedroom. My bare feet slapped against the hardwood floor. I needed to think. I needed to be Andy, the auditor, not Andy, the daughter. But the betrayal was already seeping in, hot and toxic. I went to my laptop. I have safeguards. I have 2-factor authentication. How did they get in? Then I remembered. 3 years ago, when I was in the hospital for an appendectomy, I had given my mother my phone to email my boss because I was too groggy from the anesthesia. She had my passcode. She had access for maybe 20 minutes while I slept off the surgery. She must have added her email as a recovery method then. She had been sitting on a back door to my digital life for 3 years, waiting. Waiting for what? Waiting for this. I looked at the clock. 2:28 a.m. In Idaho, where my parents lived, it was 1:28 a.m. They were probably still awake, high on the adrenaline of booking a luxury vacation. 3 tickets, $3,980 each. That's business class. maybe first class depending on the destination. Mom, Dad. And who else? Kyle, my brother? Or maybe it was just for them, and they bought an extra seat for comfort. I felt a tear slide down my cheek, hot and angry. I wiped it away furiously. Crying wouldn't fix the credit limit. Crying wouldn't pay the mortgage. I realized then that I was standing at a crossroads. Path A, I call them. I scream, they cry, they gaslight me, they say they'll pay me back. They won't. I eat the debt, I preserve the peace. Path B, I treat this like a job. I walked to my desk and opened my laptop. I pulled up a fresh Excel spreadsheet. I named the file case_study_Bennett_family. It was the hardest thing I'd ever typed. Before I go any further, I want to say thank you for being here. It's not easy to tell this story. If you're listening, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Please comment your city below. It helps me feel a little less alone in recounting this nightmare. To understand why seeing my mother's email address as the hacker broke me, you have to understand the conversation we'd had just 2 weeks prior. It was a Sunday, the dreaded weekly Zoom call. My mother, Paula, had set up the call with the subject line, Garcia Summer Retreat 2026. She loved planning things years in advance. It gave her something to brag about to her sister, my Aunt Virginia, who was actually wealthy. My parents played at being wealthy. There is a massive, canyon-sized difference. Hawaii, my mother had announced, clapping her hands together. Her video quality was grainy, but I could see the manic excitement in her eyes. We are going to Maui, the 4 Seasons. It's going to be the trip of a lifetime. My father, Mitchell, was sitting beside her, looking smug. My brother, Evan, was on a separate tile, looking bored, but interested in the free vacation aspect. That sounds expensive, Mom, I had said, sipping my coffee. I was already calculating. 4 Seasons Maui? That's $1,000 a night, minimum. Oh, stop being such a bean counter, Zoe, she snapped. I go by Zoe now, though they still call me by my childhood nickname when they want something. We deserve this. We've worked hard our whole lives. They hadn't. My father had bounced between sales jobs for 30 years, and my mother worked part-time at a boutique, spending more on clothes than she earned. They lived on credit and the generosity of family members they guilt-tripped. Here's the plan, Mom continued. We need to book the flights now to lock in the rates. I found a great deal. Economy is about $860 a person. She paused, looking directly into the camera lens, which meant she was looking at me. Now, obviously, Dad and I are retired. Evan is finding himself right now. Evan was 28 and finding himself on a friend's couch. So, she smiled, a tight, predatory smile, we figure since you're the big shot auditor in Chicago, you can handle the logistics. Logistics means booking, I said, my voice flat. Does it also mean paying? Don't be crass, my father grunted. We're a family. We pool resources. I can't afford to pay for everyone's vacation, Dad. I have my own bills. I'm saving for a down payment on a condo. You make 6 figures, Mom exclaimed, as if 6 figures meant I owned a bank. You have no husband, no kids. What are you spending it on? Shoes? My retirement fund, my savings, my life. Mom's face hardened. Look, flights are $860 each. If you cannot afford it, you stay behind. We will go without you. We aren't going to let your selfishness ruin our golden years. It was a bluff. They couldn't afford the Uber to the airport, let alone the flights. Okay, I said. Okay, what? Okay, I'll stay behind. If I can't afford it, I won't go, and I'm not paying for anyone else. There was a silence, a heavy, dangerous silence. Fine, Mom spat. Be that way. We'll figure it out. We always do. Maybe Aunt Virginia will help real family." She ended the call. I thought that was the end of it. I thought they would sulk for a month, maybe send some passive-aggressive texts about ungrateful children, and then eventually ask for $50 for groceries. I didn't realize that figuring it out meant accessing the back door into my life she'd installed 3 years ago. I looked back at my phone screen in the dark Chicago apartment. $860. That was the number she threw at me. But the charges were $3,980. They didn't just steal from me. They upgraded themselves. They treated themselves to business class on my dime because, in their twisted logic, if they were going to steal, they might as well steal in style. The audacity was breathtaking. It wasn't just desperation, it was punishment. They were punishing me for saying no. They were showing me that my no didn't matter, that my boundaries were imaginary lines they could step over whenever they wanted. "You have no husband, no kids," she had said, as if my money was public property because I hadn't reproduced, as if my labor was just a holding tank for their desires. I felt a shift inside me. It was a physical sensation, like a click in my chest. For 30 years, I had been the peacekeeper, the one who fixed things, the one who slipped them cash to keep the lights on, the one who apologized for being successful. That person died at 2:17 a.m. The woman sitting at the desk now wasn't their daughter. She was the auditor, and she had just found a major variance in the books. The phone felt heavy in my hand, like a loaded weapon. I dialed the number on the back of my credit card. It was 3:05 a.m. now. "Chase Fraud Department, this is Marcus. I'm recording this line for quality assurance." "Hi, Marcus," I said. My voice surprised me. It was steady. It didn't sound like a woman who was crying 10 minutes ago. It sounded like my work voice. "My name is Zoe Garcia. I'm reporting unauthorized activity on my Sapphire Reserve card." "I see the alerts here, Miss Garcia. 3 charges to American Airlines?" "That's correct." "Okay." "Do you have any knowledge of these transactions?" I paused. This was the moment, the point of no return. If I said, "My parents did it," the bank might say, "Well, that's a civil dispute. You need to work it out with them." Banks hate getting involved in friendly fraud. That's the industry term for when family steals from you. It sounds so nice, doesn't it? Friendly fraud. As if there is anything friendly about robbery. To get the money back, my money, the money I traded hours of my life for, I had to treat this as a crime, because it was. "I did not authorize these charges," I said clearly. "My card is in my possession. My account appears to have been compromised digitally." "Understood," Marcus typed away. "We can initiate a dispute." However, given the amount, over $10,000, this hits a felony threshold. For the investigation to proceed and for us to issue a provisional credit immediately, we will need you to file a police report and provide the case number. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to do that? The question hung in the air. Was I willing to criminalize my parents? Was I willing to put my mother, the woman who gave birth to me, on a police docket? I thought about the family money comment. I thought about the business class upgrade. I thought about the years of, "Zoe, can you pay the electric bill?" And, "Zoe, we're short on rent." I remembered the time I came home from college to find my savings bonds, gifts from my grandmother, cashed out because Dad needed a new set of golf clubs to network. I remembered them calling me selfish at my graduation because I didn't buy them a car with my signing bonus. The guilt tried to rise up, that old, conditioned reflex implanted in me since childhood. Honor thy father and mother. But then I looked at the spreadsheet on their laptop. $11,940. That wasn't a mistake. That was a down payment. That was my safety net. "Miss Garcia?" Marcus asked gently. "Yes," I said. The word was sharp, cutting through the guilt like a scalpel. Yes, I am filing a police report immediately. Please cancel the card and flag the transactions as fraud. Done. The card is dead. American Airlines will be notified within the hour. The tickets will be voided. Thank you, Marcus. I hung up. The tickets were voided. Somewhere in Idaho, an email confirmation in my mother's inbox was about to turn into a cancellation notice. I didn't stop there. I went to the police department's online portal. I filled out the report. Suspects. Known. Names. Paula Garcia, Mitchell Garcia. Relationship to victim. Parents. Description of incident. Identity theft. Unauthorized use of credit device. Grand larceny. Clicking submit felt like pulling a trigger. My hands weren't shaking anymore. A cold clarity had washed over me. This is what trauma does when you've had enough. It turns into strategy. I wasn't sad. I was efficient. I opened a new tab. I needed to lock everything down. I changed my Gmail password. I changed my bank passwords. I set up a verbal password with the bank, Swordfish, so even if they had my social security number, they couldn't call in and pretend to be me. I checked my credit report. There were inquiries, 3 of them in the last month, 1 for a car loan, 1 for a furniture store financing plan, 1 for a personal loan. All denied, thank God, probably because they messed up the income information. But they were trying. They were actively trying to wear my skin, financially speaking. I sat back in my chair. It was 4 a.m. The sun would be up soon, and when the sun came up, the war would start. I visualized them. Mom probably sleeping soundly, dreaming of Mai Tais in Maui. Dad snoring, dreaming of being a big shot in first class. They had no idea that the ATM had just closed for business, permanently. I went to the kitchen and made a pot of coffee, strong. I would need it. I wasn't going to work today. Today, my job was the Bennett family takedown. The storm didn't hit until 8 a.m. Chicago time, 7 a.m. in Idaho. I was sitting on my couch, laptop open, coffee in hand, waiting. The first notification wasn't a text. It was an email from American Airlines to my newly secured account. I had managed to reclaim it and kick Mom's recovery email off. Subject: Notice of ticket cancellation, fraud alert. Dear Zoe, per the request of Chase Bank, the following itinerary has been canceled. 10 minutes later, my phone vibrated. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. It vibrated again immediately. Mom. Then a text. Mom, Zoe, are you awake? Something is wrong with the confirmation. I took a sip of coffee and didn't reply. I was applying the gray rock method. Be boring. Be unresponsive. Be a rock. 5 minutes later. Mom, pick up the phone. The airline says the tickets are canceled. Mom, they said the card was reported stolen. Mom, did you do this? I watched the text roll in like a ticker tape of panic. Mom, Dad is freaking out. We already told Aunt Virginia we booked them. Fix this immediately. Mom, call the bank and tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you gave us permission. Permission? The word made me laugh, a dry, humorless sound. Then came the shift. The sweet mom mask slipped off, revealing the monster underneath. You selfish little brat, how dare you? After everything we did for you? You make so much money and you begrudge your parents a vacation? I'm going to tell everyone. I'm going to tell Virginia you promised to pay and then backed out to humiliate us. Then my father's number popped up. He didn't text, he left a voicemail. I played it on speaker, my voice recorder app running on my laptop to capture a backup. Zoe. His voice was a low growl. You better fix this, now. You don't embarrass me. You don't cancel my tickets. That is family money. You owe us. You call the bank, you tell them it was a mistake, or so help me God, I will drive down there and... He cut himself off, but the threat hung heavy in the static. I typed a single response to the group chat that included Mom, Dad, and my brother Evan. Me. I have reported the fraudulent charges of $11,940 to the police and the fraud department. Do not contact me again or I will file for a restraining order. The reaction was nuclear. My phone basically had a seizure. Dad, police? You called the cops on your mother? Mom, you are dead to me. You are evil. You want to see your mother in jail over money? Evan, whoa, sis. Cops. That's intense. Can't you just pay it? I looked at Evan's message. Can't you just pay it? The enabler, the baby, the one they protected while they cannibalized me. Me. No, Evan, I can't just pay $12,000. And they didn't ask. They stole. That's a crime. I blocked their numbers temporarily. I needed focus. I printed the text logs. I printed the call logs. My printer hummed, a rhythmic, comforting sound. Chug, chug, chug. Evidence. Receipts. In my line of work, we have a saying, God checks the heart, auditors check the receipts. I was checking everything. Around 11 a.m., my building buzzer rang. I looked at the intercom camera. It wasn't my parents. They were a 6-hour drive away in Idaho. It was a delivery guy? No, I squinted. It was my father. My heart stopped. How? Then I realized they hadn't been in Idaho. They must have been visiting Aunt Virginia in the suburbs of Chicago. That's why they booked the flights last night. They were probably drinking wine with her, bragging, and decided to solidify the lie right then and there. He was here, downstairs, and he looked furious. I saw him pacing in the small vestibule of my apartment building. He was wearing his country club attire, polo shirt tucked into khakis, but his face was red, mottled with rage. He was jamming his finger into the buzzer button repeatedly. Bzz, bzz, bzz. The sound echoed through my apartment like a siren. I walked to the door. I didn't open it. I engaged the heavy deadbolt and the chain. I took my phone, opened the camera, and switched to video. Showtime, I whispered to myself. I wasn't going to hide. I was going to get him on record. I opened the door just a crack, the chain pulling taut. Dad, I said through the gap. He slammed his hand against the wood. Open this goddamn door, Zoe. We need to talk. We are not talking, I said, holding the phone up so the lens could see his face through the crack. I told you to stop contacting me. You canceled the tickets, he shouted, not caring about the neighbors. Virginia thinks we're liars. You made us look like fools. You stole $12,000 from me. I didn't steal, he roared. I borrowed. It's family resources. You're my daughter. Everything you have is ours if we need it. That's how family works. That is not how the law works, Mitchell, I said, using his first name. It stopped him for a second, the shock of it. You ungrateful. He sputtered. We raised you. We fed you. You owe us. I owe you nothing. Leave. Now, or I'm calling 911. You wouldn't. I already filed the police report for the theft. Do you want to add trespassing and harassment to the list? I have the phone ready. He glared at me, his eyes bulging. For a second, I thought he might try to kick the door in. He was a big man, and his temper was legendary. I flinched internally, the little girl afraid of Daddy's belt momentarily surfacing. But the camera lens was a shield. He saw the red recording dot. He pointed a shaking finger at me. You fix this. You call the bank, or you'll regret it. That's a threat. That's a promise. We know things, Zoe. We can ruin you. Get out, I said, my voice icy. He spat on the floor of the hallway, turned, and stormed off. I slammed the door, locked it, and leaned my forehead against the cool wood. We know things. What did they know? I had no secrets. I lived a boring, legal life. But bluffing was their superpower. I saved the video. Evidence_confrontation_01. My hands were trembling again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was adrenaline. The confrontation had been ugly, but it had yielded gold. Everything you have is ours. He had admitted it. He had admitted the entitlement on video. He admitted he viewed my assets as his property. In a court of law, intent is everything. He just handed me his intent on a silver platter. I went back to my computer. I needed to dig deeper. If they were this desperate for a vacation, what was their actual financial situation? I pulled up public records. Being a forensic accountant gives you access to databases that the average person doesn't know exist. Skip tracing tools, property lien searches, court dockets. I typed in Mitchell and Paula Garcia, Boise, Idaho. The screen populated with red flags. 1. Mortgage. Their house, the one I grew up in, was in pre-foreclosure. They hadn't paid the mortgage in 6 months. 2. Liens. There was a tax lien from the IRS for $15,000. 3. Lawsuits. A credit card company was suing them for a default of $8,000. My jaw dropped. They weren't just bad with money. They were drowning. They were functionally bankrupt. And yet, they were trying to book a $12,000 vacation to Hawaii? It was delusional. It was pathological. They were trying to have one last hurrah before the house of cards collapsed, and they were using my body as the foundation. Then I saw something that made me freeze. A secondary address associated with my father's name, 142 Willow Creek Lane. That was Aunt Virginia's address, the wealthy aunt. Why was his name on her address? I dug into the credit inquiries again. There was a credit card opened in the name of Virginia Bennett 6 months ago. Authorized user, Mitchell Garcia. My blood ran cold. Aunt Virginia was 75. She was sharp, but she trusted family implicitly. She had let my dad handle some handyman stuff for her house. Had he swiped her information? We know things, Dad had said. Did they have dirt on Virginia, or were they bleeding her dry too? I picked up my phone. I had to call her. Auntie V, I said when she picked up. Zoe, oh honey, I'm so glad you called. Your mother is here and she is in a state. She says there was some mix-up with the bank and you're refusing to help. She's crying her eyes out in the kitchen. Of course she was. The performance. Aunt Virginia, listen to me very carefully. You need to go into another room where they can't hear you. What? Why? Zoe, you sound so serious. Please, just do it. I heard the shuffle of footsteps, a door closing. Okay, I'm in the den. What is going on? Mom and Dad stole $12,000 from me last night to buy those tickets. I didn't promise to pay. They hacked my account. Oh, Zoe, surely not. Stole? That's a strong word. Maybe they just got confused with the cards. No, Auntie, they changed my passwords. They covered their tracks. But that's not why I'm calling. I took a deep breath. Aunt Virginia, have you checked your American Express statement lately? The platinum one? No, I don't check it often. I have it on autopay. Why? Please log in, right now. I'll wait. I heard the tapping of keys, the rustle of paper. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then, a gasp. A small, broken sound. Zoe, her voice quavered. There are charges here for a boat rental, a storage unit, and, oh my God, a down payment on a Lexus? Is the authorized user Mitchell Garcia? Yes, she whispered. He told me he needed to be on the account to pick up construction materials for my deck repair. That was 6 months ago. How much is it, Auntie? It's over $30,000. She started to cry. Not the fake wailing cry my mother did. This was the quiet, horrified sobbing of a woman who realizes her baby sister is a predator. I'm so sorry, Auntie, I said, my own heart breaking for her. I thought they loved me, she sobbed. I've given them so much. Why? Because they don't love us, I said, the truth tasting like ash in my mouth. They consume us. What do I do? She asked, sounding like a child. You lock the door of that den, I said. You call the police, and you tell them you have a thief in your house. I can't. Arrest my sister? If you don't, they will drain you until you lose that house, Virginia. Look at the statement. They are eating you alive. Okay, she breathed. Okay, but they aren't here right now. Mitchell went out. He said to see you. Paula went to the store. Good, that gives you time. Pack a bag, go to a hotel. Do not let them back in. Zoe? Yeah? Burn them, she said. Her voice suddenly hardened, channeling that Bennett matriarch energy. Burn them to the ground. I hung up. I had an ally, a powerful one. And now I knew the stakes. It wasn't just $12,000, it was hundreds of thousands. My parents were running a Ponzi scheme of family fraud, and I was going to be the one to crash the market. The revelation about Aunt Virginia was the gasoline. Now I needed the match. I spent the next 4 hours diving into the digital forensics phase of my plan. I stopped reacting and started hunting. If they had hit me and Virginia, who else? I thought about Kyle, my older brother, the golden child who could do no wrong, but who somehow never seemed to get ahead. He lived in Oregon. He and I rarely spoke because Mom always triangulated us, telling me he thought I was stuck up and telling him I thought he was a loser. I sent him a text. Me. Hey, Kyle, weird question. Have you checked your credit report lately? He replied instantly. Kyle, funny you ask. I tried to get a mortgage last week. Denied. Said I have a default on a timeshare in Florida. I've never been to Florida. I closed my eyes. Bingo. Me. Call me. Kyle picked up on the first ring. Zoe, what's going on? Mom's been texting me saying you're having a mental breakdown and attacking them. Mom is a liar, Kyle. They stole $12K from me last night and apparently $30K from Aunt Virginia. Holy shit. The timeshare. Did Dad ever mention a timeshare? Yeah, like 5 years ago. He said he bought one for the family legacy, said he put it in a trust. He put it in your name, Kyle, and he stopped paying the fees. I heard a thud on the other end, like he had punched a wall. That explains why my credit score is 580. I've been busting my ass, so. I drive Uber after my shift at the warehouse. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't qualify for a loan for a ring for Sarah. They stole your future, Kyle. I'm going to kill him, Kyle growled. No, you're going to help me bury him, legally. What do you need? Send me the denial letter for the mortgage. Send me the credit report showing the timeshare. I'm building a case file. We are going to present this to the police as a pattern of RICO activity, racketeering. You really think we can get them? I'm an auditor, Kyle. I can find a penny in a haystack. I'm going to find every cent they stole from us. I'm in, he said. And Zoe? Yeah? I'm sorry I believed them about you. They told me you hated me. They told me the same about you. Divided we fall, he muttered. United we stand, I finished. After the call with Kyle, I went back to my emails. I needed to find the smoking gun that linked them directly to the intent to defraud. The oops, I used the wrong card defense wouldn't hold up if I could prove premeditation. I scanned my trash folder in Gmail, the one I had recovered. Mom had been sloppy. She had deleted the confirmation emails for the flights, but she hadn't emptied the trash. But there was something else. An email thread forwarded from Dad to Mom, which Mom had forwarded to herself, probably to print at the library, and then forwarded to my email by mistake before deleting it? No, that didn't make sense. I dug deeper. It was the sent folder of her Yahoo account. Wait, how did I have access to that? I didn't. But when I recovered my account earlier, Google asked if I wanted to merge data or view history from the recovery email to verify identity. I had clicked yes without thinking. For a brief window, because her security settings were garbage, I could see the subject lines of emails sent to the recovery address regarding my account. And there it was, a snippet of a chat log she had emailed to herself for safekeeping. Subject, plan for summer. It was a copy-paste of a text conversation between Mom and Dad from 3 months ago. Dad, the house is going under, Paula. We need cash. Mom, I know. Virginia is getting suspicious about the Amex. We need a new source. Dad, what about Zoe? She just got that promotion. Mom, she's tight-fisted. But I still have her email login from when she was sick. If we wait for a big purchase, we can claim it was a misunderstanding. Let's book the Hawaii trip. If she catches us, we guilt her. She folds every time. She's weak. True, she's desperate for our approval. It's pathetic, really. I stared at the screen. She's desperate for our approval. It's pathetic, really. That sentence burned itself into my retinas. It wasn't just theft. It was contempt. They despised me. They despised my love for them. They saw my desire to be a good daughter as a weakness to be exploited. I took a screenshot. I saved it as evidence_premeditation_the smoking gun. I felt a strange sense of calm. The last vestige of guilt evaporated. I wasn't sending my parents to jail. I was sending 2 predators to their natural habitat. By 4 p.m., my apartment looked like a war room, papers everywhere. My phone rang. It was Sarah Jenkins. Sarah was my best friend from college and, conveniently, a ruthless criminal defense attorney. Zoe, she said, her voice clipped. I got your text. I reviewed the police report you filed. It's solid, but we need to talk about the fallout. I'm ready, Sarah. Are you? Because they are going to play dirty. Do they know where you work? Obviously. Warn your boss. Today. Right now. Narcissists don't go down quietly. They scorch the earth. She was right. I looked at the clock. Mr. Sterling, the managing partner of my firm, usually stayed late. I needed to get ahead of the narrative. I composed an email. Subject: Urgent personal matter, potential harassment alert. Dear Mr. Sterling, I am writing to inform you of a personal legal matter involving identity theft by immediate family members. I have filed a police report, case number attached. I anticipate they may attempt to contact the firm to damage my reputation as a form of retaliation. Please disregard any communications from Mitchell or Paula Garcia. I am happy to discuss this in person tomorrow. I hit send. It was humiliating. Telling your boss your parents are criminals is not exactly a career booster, but silence was dangerous. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Mr. Sterling. I swallowed hard. Hello, Mr. Sterling? Zoe. His voice was deep, authoritative. I just read your email. I apologize for dragging the firm into this, sir. I just wanted to be proactive. Zoe, listen to me. I received an email about 30 minutes ago from a concerned citizen. My heart stopped. What did it say? It claimed you were embezzling client funds to support a gambling addiction and that you were high on prescription pills during the audit of the Henderson account. I felt faint. Mr. Sterling, that is absolute lies. Stop, he interrupted. I know it's a lie. The email was written in all caps, riddled with spelling errors, and sent from a Yahoo address. And frankly, you're the most boringly ethical auditor I've ever employed. I verified the Henderson accounts myself last week. They are perfect. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Thank you, sir. However, He continued, attempting to sabotage an employee's livelihood is a tortious interference with business relations. If you want the firm's legal counsel to send a cease and desist on company letterhead, say the word. I teared up. This man, my boss, was showing more protection and loyalty in a 5-minute phone call than my parents had in 30 years. I would appreciate that, sir. Consider it done. And Zoe, take tomorrow off. Handle this. Thank you. I hung up and looked at the wall. They tried to get me fired. They tried to take away my income, the very income they wanted to steal. If I lost my job, I couldn't pay my rent, let alone their debts. It was illogical malice. It was pure spite. She's weak, Mom had written. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. I called Aunt Virginia back. Where are you? I'm at the Marriott, she whispered. I locked the house. Good. I need you to do something for me. I need you to invite them to talk tomorrow. Tell them you want to help them sort out the misunderstanding with me. You want me to lure them? Yes. Tell them I'll be there. Tell them I'm ready to apologize. Zoe, are you sure? Yes. We need them in one room. We need a confession in front of witnesses before the police pick them up. I want them to look me in the eye when the cuffs go on. Okay, Virginia said, her voice trembling but resolved. I'll set the trap. I hung up. The stage was set. Act 1 was the theft. Act 2 was the investigation. Act 3 would be the execution. The next morning, I drove to the suburbs. The sky was gray, matching my mood. I met Sarah, my lawyer friend, at a coffee shop near Aunt Virginia's house. She looked sharp in her power suit, holding a briefcase that I knew contained draft affidavits and the cease and desist from my firm. You look like you haven't slept, Sarah noted, handing me a latte. I slept like a baby, I lied, a baby who knows justice is coming. Remember the plan, Sarah said. Let them talk. Narcissists love to talk. The more they talk, the more they incriminate themselves. Do not interrupt. Do not get emotional. You are a statue. I am a statue, I repeated. We drove to Aunt Virginia's house. It was a beautiful colonial home, the kind my parents coveted. Virginia let us in. She looked frail, her eyes red-rimmed. Kyle was there too. He had driven all night from Oregon. He looked exhausted, scruffy, and angry. They'll be here in 10 minutes, Virginia said. They think I'm going to write them a check to cover the loan so Zoe doesn't press charges. Perfect, I said. We set up the living room. I placed my laptop on the coffee table, connected to the large TV on the wall via HDMI. What's that? Kyle asked. The presentation, I said grimly. At 11 a.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. I sat in the armchair in the corner. Sarah sat next to me. Kyle stood by the fireplace. Virginia went to the door. I heard my mother's voice first. Oh, Jenny, thank God, that girl has lost her mind. Then my father. Is she here? I'm going to wring her neck. Come in, sit down, Virginia said, her voice surprisingly steady. They walked into the living room. When they saw me, Dad lunged forward. You! Kyle stepped in front of him. Kyle is 6'2" and works in a warehouse lifting crates. Dad is 65 and soft. Dad stopped. Kyle, Dad looked confused. What are you doing here? Stopping you from assaulting my sister, Kyle said, his voice low. Sit down, Mitchell, Virginia commanded. And you too, Paula. They sat on the sofa, looking uncomfortable. They noticed Sarah. Who is this? Mom asked, eyeing Sarah's suit. My counsel, I said. Counsel? Mom laughed, a shrill, nervous sound. We don't need lawyers. We're family. We're just here to fix this mess you made, Zoe. Mom turned to Virginia. Ginny, listen. Zoe is having a breakdown. The job is too much for her. She forgot she promised to pay for the trip. Now she's embarrassed, so she's making up these stories about hacking. We just want to help her." She looked at me with pity. "Honey, just drop the police report, and we can forget this ever happened. Virginia is going to help us with the bills, so you don't have to worry." I looked at her. The mask was so perfect. The concern looked so real. If I didn't know better, I would have believed her. "Is that true, Mom?" I asked softly. "I'd just forgot?" "Yes, baby. It's the stress." "And the email to my boss, accusing me of being a drug addict?" Mom didn't blink. "I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe someone else hates you too." "You've been very difficult lately." I looked at Dad. "And the timeshare in Kyle's name? The one ruining his credit?" Dad scoffed. "I was building assets for him. He should be thanking me." "And the $30,000 on Aunt Virginia's Amex?" The room went silent. Mom turned to Virginia. "Ginny, we needed materials for the deck." "For a deck you never built?" Virginia asked, her voice shaking. "I checked the statement, Paula. You bought jewelry. You bought a hot tub for your house." I can explain," Mom stammered. "It was compensation for all the time Mitchell spent helping you." "You stole from her," I said. "We did not," Dad shouted. "We are entitled to a share. Virginia has millions. We have nothing. It's not fair." "It's not fair." The anthem of the mediocre. "Okay," I said. "I think I've heard enough." I hit the spacebar on my laptop. The big screen TV flickered to life. "What is that?" Mom asked, fear creeping into her eyes. "This," I said, "is the audit of Mitchell and Paula Garcia." The first slide was the smoking gun text exchange. "She's desperate for our approval. It's pathetic, really." It appeared in 60-inch high definition. Mom gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. "You sent it to me," I said. "Well, to my account. Thanks for the access, Mom." I clicked to the next slide. A timeline. 2018, savings bonds cashed, forgery. 2020, Kyle's identity stolen, timeshare. 2023, Virginia's credit card compromised. 2025, attempted mortgage fraud using Zoe's SSN, denied. Yesterday, 11,940 theft. "This isn't a misunderstanding," I narrated, channeling my best courtroom voice. "This is a 10-year timeline of systematic financial abuse." "Turn it off," Dad yelled, standing up. "Sit down," Kyle shouted, pushing him back onto the sofa. "You ungrateful little," Dad started. "Slide 3, I said calmly. I played the audio recording from my apartment door. "Everything you have is ours. We know things. We can ruin you." Dad's voice filled the room, ugly and raw. Virginia put her face in her hands. "And finally," I said, "the email to Mr. Sterling." I projected the IP address of the sender next to the IP address of the login for the airline tickets. Same location, your house. I closed the laptop. "So," I said, "here is the situation. You have committed wire fraud, identity theft, credit card fraud, and defamation. The total theft amount exceeds $50,000 across 3 victims. That is a Class B felony." Mom started crying. Real tears this time. Tears of terror. "Zoe, please, we're your parents. You can't put us in jail. We're old. Dad has high blood pressure." "You should have thought about his blood pressure before you stole 30 grand from his sister," Kyle said. "Virginia," Mom pleaded, turning to her sister, "help us. Tell her to stop." Virginia looked up. Her face was wet, but her eyes were like flint. "I helped you for 40 years, Paula. I bought your cars, I paid for your weddings, I bailed you out, and you stole from me. You looked me in the face and stole. We were desperate." "You bought business class tickets to Hawaii," I snapped. "Desperate people buy groceries. Parasites buy luxury vacations." "We just wanted one nice thing," Mom wailed. "Why does everyone else get the good life? Why do we always get the scraps?" "Because you don't work for it," Kyle yelled. "I work double shifts. Zoe works 60 hours a week. You two sit around and complain." "We're leaving," Dad muttered, standing up. "Come on, Paula. They've all turned against us. We'll get our own lawyer." "You can't leave," Sarah spoke up for the first time. Her voice was calm, professional. "Excuse me? Am I under arrest?" Dad sneered. "Actually," Sarah checked her watch, "yes, any second now." As if on cue, the siren wailed in the distance. The color drained from Dad's face. "You called the cops?" "I didn't," I said. "Virginia did." Mom screamed, a guttural sound. "Ginny, no! Call them off!" "It's too late," Virginia said, looking away. "The report is filed. The evidence is submitted." The flashing blue and red lights washed over the living room walls, illuminating the slides on the TV screen. The audit of Mitchell and Paula Garcia. Final conclusion. Failed. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but my head was clear. "This is the consequences of your actions," I said. "You taught me that actions have consequences, remember?" There was a heavy pounding on the front door. "Police, open up!" I looked at my parents. They looked small. They looked old. They looked like strangers. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the urge to save them. Before we see the final fallout, I want to say, you are amazing for staying with me this far. It takes a lot of patience to listen to a story this heavy. Please hit that like button and comment the number 1 below if you think they deserved what's coming. Your support keeps me going. Watching your parents get handcuffed is a surreal experience. It's not like the movies. It's clumsy, it's loud, it's deeply embarrassing. 2 officers entered the living room. Detective Miller, who I had spoken to on the phone, led the way. "Mitchell Garcia? Paula Garcia?" "This is a mistake," Mom shrieked as the female officer took her arm. "My daughter is confused. It's a family dispute." "We have the bank records, ma'am," the officer said, spinning her around. Click, click. The sound of the handcuffs ratcheting shut was the loudest sound I had ever heard. Dad didn't scream. He went silent. He stared at me with eyes full of pure, unadulterated hatred. "You're dead to me," he mouthed. "I know," I said aloud. "I was dead to you the minute I stopped being a paycheck." They were marched out to the cruisers. The neighbors were watching. Mrs. Higgins from next door was filming on her phone. Mom was sobbing, dragging her feet, creating a scene. Dad held his head high, delusional to the end, acting like a political prisoner rather than a petty thief. When the cars drove away, the silence in the house was deafening. Virginia collapsed onto the sofa. Kyle sat down next to her and put his arm around her. I stood by the window, watching the empty street. "It's over," Sarah said gently, putting a hand on my shoulder. "Is it?" I asked. "The legal part is just starting, but the abuse, yes, that's over." The next few months were a blur of legal proceedings. Because of the amount stolen and the age of the victims, Virginia, being a senior citizen, makes it an elder abuse enhancement in some jurisdictions. The DA went hard. Sarah helped us navigate it. I didn't have to testify in court because they took a plea deal. Faced with the mountain of evidence, my audit, the recording, the emails, their public defender told them they had 0 chance at trial. The plea deal. They pleaded guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of identity theft. Sentencing. Because they were first-time offenders and over 60, they avoided prison time. Instead, they got 5 years of strict probation. 2, restitution. They had to pay back every cent, $12,000 to me, $32,000 to Virginia, $15,000 to the creditors for Kyle's timeshare. 3, asset seizure. To pay the restitution, they were forced to sell their house, the house I grew up in. The equity, what little was left after the mortgage, went straight to us. 4. No contact order. They are legally forbidden from contacting me, Kyle, or Virginia for 5 years. The fallout was total. Their reputation in their small Idaho community was destroyed. The local paper ran the police blotter. Everyone knew. The country club friends? Gone. The relatives they bragged to? Ghosted them. They moved into a small, rented, one-bedroom apartment in a bad part of Boise. Dad had to get a job as a greeter at a big box store to supplement their Social Security, which was now being garnished for the remaining debt. Mom had to actually work full-time at a call center. No more Hawaii, no more golden years, just the cold, hard reality of living within their means. Kyle managed to get the timeshare removed from his credit report with the court judgment. His score jumped up to 720 within 6 months. He proposed to his girlfriend, and they are closing on a small house next month. Virginia is in therapy, but she's healing. She put new locks on her doors and a new executor on her will, me. As for me, I got my $12,000 back, but I gained something much more valuable. I gained my freedom. 1 year later. The air in Maui smells different than the air in Chicago. In Chicago, the air smells like ozone, cold pavement, and hustle. Here, on the lanai of the Four Seasons Walea, the air smells of plumeria, salt spray, and something else. Something I never thought I'd be able to identify by scent: peace. The sun was beginning its slow, dramatic descent into the Pacific, painting the sky in violent shades of violet and burnt orange. It was the kind of sunset you see on postcards, the kind my parents had tried to steal. The irony wasn't lost on me. They had committed a felony to get here. I had simply worked hard, saved, and clicked book now. I took a sip of my drink, a chilled Sauvignon Blanc that cost $22 a glass. In the past, that price tag would have given me palpitations. I would have mentally calculated how many minutes of billable hours that wine represented. I would have heard my mother's voice in my head. Must be nice to waste money like that while your family suffers. But today, the wine just tasted like grapes and crisp ocean air. There was no guilt, no mental calculation, just the taste. Zoe? I turned. Kyle was walking out onto the terrace. He looked different. The hunch in his shoulders, the physical manifestation of carrying our parents' expectations and failures for 30 years, was gone. He was wearing a linen shirt, untucked, and he was smiling. Not the nervous, apologetic smile he used to wear when asking me for a loan, but a real, teeth-showing smile. "Sarah is freaking out over the appetizers," he laughed, dropping into the chair next to me. "She says the poke is life-changing." "It is," I agreed. Sarah, his new fiancée, was inside with Aunt Virginia. They were laughing about something, a deep, belly-shaking sound that drifted through the open glass doors. Kyle looked at me, his expression turning serious for a moment. "You know, I almost didn't propose, even after the credit score went up. Why? I was afraid I'd turn into Dad, that I'd be dragging her into a mess." "You are not Dad," I said firmly. "Dad used people. You protect them. There's a difference." Kyle nodded, looking out at the ocean. "Yeah, I think I finally believe that." We sat in silence for a moment, the kind of comfortable silence that only exists between two people who have survived the same war. A year ago, my life was a crime scene. My identity was a commodity traded by the two people who were supposed to protect it. My bank account was a bleeding wound. Today, my life is a fortress. It didn't happen overnight. The legal victory was just the paperwork. The real work, the reconstruction of my soul, was harder than any audit I'd ever performed. I spent the first 3 months in therapy, unpacking the financial trauma. My therapist, Dr. Eris, told me something that changed my life. Zoe, you were raised to be a resource, not a person. Your rebellion wasn't reporting the fraud. Your rebellion is being happy without being useful to them. Being happy without being useful. That was the hardest part. I had to learn who Zoe was when she wasn't Zoe the fixer, Zoe the ATM, or Zoe the retirement plan. I found out that Zoe loves hiking. I found out that Zoe likes cooking complicated French recipes on Tuesday nights just because she can. I found out that Zoe is actually really funny when she isn't terrified of saying the wrong thing. My phone buzzed on the glass table. For a split second, just a heartbeat, my stomach tightened. That old reflex, the PTSD of the 2 a.m. notification. I looked down. It wasn't a fraud alert. It was an email from Mr. Sterling. Subject: Senior Partner Promotion and Equity Stake. Zoe, the board has unanimously approved your promotion to senior partner. Your handling of the Henderson audit was masterful, but frankly, it was your integrity during your personal crisis last year that convinced us. You showed grace under fire. We need that kind of leadership. The equity package is attached. Let's discuss the corner office when you return. I read it twice. Then I read the attachment. The salary increase was substantial. The equity stake was life-changing. My parents had tried to destroy my career. They had sent that email accusing me of being an addict, trying to get me fired so I would be forced back under their control. Instead, their actions had inadvertently highlighted my greatest asset, my unshakable integrity. Mr. Sterling had told me later, a woman who will put her own parents in handcuffs to do the right thing is a woman I can trust with my clients' billions. Karma isn't just about bad people getting punished. It's about the truth finding the light. Good news? Kyle asked, seeing my face. I made partner, I whispered. Kyle let out a whoop that turned heads at the nearby tables. Hell yes, that's my sister. Aunt Virginia and Sarah came running out. What happened? Who won? Zoe won, Kyle grinned. She's the boss now, like officially. Virginia hugged me. She smelled of expensive perfume and resilience. Virginia had been the hardest hit financially, losing over $30,000 to Dad's schemes, but she had recovered too. She had sold the big house that was too empty without her husband, downsized to a chic condo in the city, and used the leftover cash to travel. I'm so proud of you, she whispered in my ear. And you know what? We broke the cycle. The Bennett curse ends with us. She was right. The cycle was broken. My parents were currently living in a one-bedroom walk-up in Boise. From what I heard through the grapevine, mostly cousin Becky, who couldn't keep a secret, it was a miserable existence. Dad was working as a greeter at a Walmart, forced to stand on his feet for 8 hours a day, something he considered beneath him. Mom was working at a call center, answering complaints. Their wages were garnished every month to pay the restitution to me and Virginia. They had no friends, no country club, no reputation. They were alone with each other, trapped in a prison of their own making. And the most beautiful part? I didn't feel sorry for them. I didn't feel angry either. I felt indifferent. They were just characters in a bad book I had finished reading. I had closed the cover and put it back on the shelf. I looked around at my new family. Kyle, Sarah, Virginia. This was the family I chose. We were bound not by blood obligation or guilt, but by mutual respect and genuine love. Drinks are on me tonight, I announced, and not because I have to, but because I want to. I'll drink to that, Sarah said, raising her glass. As the sun finally dipped below the horizon, turning the ocean into a sheet of dark velvet, I thought about the lessons I would carry forward. I thought about the thousands of people out there, maybe you're one of them, who are stuck in the web of family obligation. Here is what I learned, written in the ledger of my life. Lesson 1. Financial abuse is domestic abuse. Just because they aren't hitting you doesn't mean they aren't hurting you. Stealing your future, ruining your credit, and demanding your labor is violence. It is a violation of your safety. Treat it with the same seriousness you would a physical attack. Call the police, file the report, lock the doors. Lesson 2. No is a complete sentence. I used to explain my no. I can't give you money because I have rent, or I can't come over because I have work. Explanations are just negotiation points for a narcissist. Now, I just say no. No, I won't do that. No, I won't do that. No, that doesn't work for me. It is a wall, not a gate, and it is the most powerful word in the English language. Lesson 3. You cannot save people who are addicted to drowning. My parents were drowning in their own entitlement. For years, I acted as their life raft. All that happened was that I started to sink with them. Cutting the rope wasn't an act of cruelty, it was an act of survival. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, especially if they are the ones holding the matches. Lesson 4. Your value is not your utility. I am not valuable because I am an auditor. I am not valuable because I can lend money. I am not valuable because I am a good daughter. I am valuable because I exist. I am valuable because I am kind, because I am honest, and because I am brave. If someone only loves you when you are useful to them, they don't love you. They love the utility. There is a massive difference. I looked down at my phone one last time. I opened the banking app. Balance, healthy. Credit card, zero balance. Life, full. I thought about the 2:17 a.m. version of Zoe, scared, shaking, feeling betrayed in the dark. I wanted to reach back through time and hold her hand. I wanted to tell her, it's going to be okay. Better than okay. You're going to burn it all down, and from the ashes, you're going to build a castle. Zoe? Aunt Virginia tapped my arm. A penny for your thoughts? I smiled, looking at the 3 people who had stood by me when the world fell apart. I was just thinking, I said, raising my glass towards the stars that were starting to emerge, that for the first time in my life, the books are balanced. Kyle raised his beer. To a balanced ledger. To justice, Sarah added. To freedom, Aunt Virginia smiled. I clinked my glass against theirs. The sound rang out clear and pure, like a bell signaling the end of a long dark shift and the beginning of a bright new morning. To us, I said. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the sweet night air. I am Zoe Garcia. I am not a victim. I am not a paycheck. I am the author of my own story, and for the first time, I can't wait to see what happens on the next page. Thank you. Thank you for listening to my journey. I hope my story gives you the courage to check your own receipts, whether they are financial or emotional. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be respected, and you deserve a life that belongs only to you.